Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the Middle Ages of Europe and the gender roles that went along with it. Historians define the Middle Ages of Europe as 600 CE to 1450 CE. Women were treated with very little regard in this society, and it wasn't just from strangers around them, it was unfortunately by the people that they were closest to, their immediate family, the church, usually their husbands, and I find this to be very oppressive because if you're a woman who's growing up in this society, you are basically constantly being force fed this information that you have to be exactly what everyone wants you to be and you can't really express yourself in the way that you want to. A lot of this went along with the beauty trends at the time. There was a lot of beauty standards of what was seen to be beautiful by men. It was mostly the male gaze. And this kind of forced the idea that women were objects. They were property of their husbands or their oldest male relative. And this was a very harmful message that did end up, unfortunately, influencing the future of Europe.
Those born into noble families had easier lives than those born as peasants or serfs. But all females were considered inferior to males by nature and by law. Laws were set by lords and kings and by the male heads of the Roman Catholic Church, a powerful influence on society in the Middle Ages. Women were taught to obey men, their fathers, and after they married, their husbands. The primary job opportunity for most women was to have and raise children. Girls were often married by age 14 and had their first baby by age 15. Medical knowledge and care was crude. Dying while giving birth was the most common cause of death in young women.
As previously stated in the last video, the social hierarchy is a key component to understanding Middle Age Europe. At the top of the social hierarchy was the king. Under him were the nobles, under them were the knights, and at the very bottom were the peasants. The reason that understanding this social hierarchy was so important was to convey the difference of their treatment in this society. If you were a noble woman, you were allowed to pursue different opportunities, even if it wasn't traditionally accepted at a lower level. So although these women were not supposed to be getting educations, their higher economic status allowed them to do more things and have more opportunities than the peasants did. The peasants at this time had no opportunity to get educated. Their only opportunity was to join the church. And even at this level, they were only allowed to get a very small amount of reading experience so that they could read the Bible. This pushed women into the church. And I personally believe that this forced so many more women to become evangelical. And it caused a forever changing influence on Europe as a whole. Because even now,
in the 15th century, having an oval-shaped face with small lips and a small nose was thought to make a woman look more pure, innocent, and childlike. As hair coverings were demanded by the church, one way to achieve an open and expansive face was to scrape back the hair under a hood or veil and raise the hairline. But not every medieval woman had a naturally high forehead, so some women even went as far as lifting the hairline by artificial means, such as plucking the hair out. The church would only accept cosmetic enhancement if it remedied severe disfigurement, so a woman would not be looked down on by her husband. Unfortunately, plucking the hairline did not qualify, and so any woman who was thought to have taken part in the practice was given a stern lecture by her priest on the mortal sin of vanity.
As stated in the previous clip, unfortunately, forehead plucking was a very common practice in this time. The event itself does not hold as much significance as why it happened and the consequences that these women faced for doing this. The reason that many women did this is because they didn't feel they fit the beauty standard. These women's husbands, the men in their life, would often not make them feel beautiful. They would feel as if they were worthless if they didn't have beauty. On the other side of this, the consequence that these women faced for the shame they originally felt was unfortunately more shame. The church would lecture them, the priests would basically tell them that they shouldn't have changed their body because God gave them a perfect one. But in this society, they were not made to feel as if they were perfect. This brings me to my point that the church overstepped its bounds and kind of reached into all aspects of society that it had no business in. So this includes marriages, women's bodies, women's appearance, and the home life of these women. The church became a part of everyone's life in every. The main points of my presentation are that during this period of time, women were heavily oppressed by everyone around them. This includes the church, beauty standards of the time, their husbands, their families, their peers. Overall, women had a very difficult time during this period and had to work twice as hard as men, if not more. Another point is that the church preyed upon women in a lower socioeconomic status than women who were higher. They used the fact that these women couldn't get an education as a way to lure them into the church. And lastly, the churches negatively affecting these women and also involving themselves within the beauty trends of the time and worsening them for women. Thank you for your time.